I'd be there by 7. So,
Yeah,
but it wasn't long after when I saw all that wind and.
We had several parents call and wanted to know why we hadn't closed school today or delayed start because it was a blizzard and we couldn't see.
It must have been elementary.
Actually, it was high school.
Really?
High school.
You know, by
Huh.
7:45
Was bad.
light out. It was,
Yeah,
you
Joe
could see
said
about 30,
kids on the wrong side
30
of the
yards
road.
ahead.
Oh, my word.
He didn't know where he was, and somebody turned on their flashers to kind of let him know that he needed to move over.
Wow, okay, that makes sense. So I could hear Laura was talking about somebody and their lights and something.
Yeah, Joe said all up there by Smith's, it was just a white out.
Oh, my word. No, we both missed that. We both missed that. Thank goodness.
Crazy.
But every time I looked outside, that's all I could see was just blowing snow.
They said 150 was really bad. Closed for a while.
It was crazy by the time school got out at 3, though, 3:15, blue skies.
Yeah. Yeah, they had, I think it's a little bit of a pileup at 150 this morning.
That's what I heard. They announced everything canceled tonight. The kids come, are you doing after school help? No, I'm going home. No time.
Yeah.
They
Get 'em all-
canceled
get 'em home.
Shrek, they canceled choir concert, they canceled, what's the other thing? Oh, I guess I didn't have math class, but they call it math.
Get everybody on the buses and get them home.
I'm a little bit worried this weekend what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to be taking our math counts kids on Saturday. The Spanish kids are going Friday. We're supposed to have storm Friday.
Yeah.
I'm worried that my kids won't get there. I keep thinking, like, do I need to send them with the Spanish kids? But if it's snowing Friday, they close the road still on
Then you're gonna,
Friday.
then you gotta get them home.
Yeah. So the Green River coach asked the state people at Laramie, so what happens if the roads are closed? And she goes, well, they will reschedule. And I want to see an email and say, roads are closed right now, already.
Yeah.
We need to maybe move the dates right now.
Yeah, they were closed for quite a while today.
Yeah.
They're back open.
When I checked at 4:30, they were closed still. I've got 2 little boys that potentially could make it to missions.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm stronger this year. Davis is going, so we have 2 teams going.
That's really good.
Yeah, we're so excited. But I don't know what to do when we put these kids there.
It's scary, that's a pretty treacherous road.
It is, and then you see those pictures that were on the Facebook that showed the drifts.
Yeah.
And literally nothing. My sister's like, what happened to something?
And it must not have been over the mountain because I talked to my daughter later today and she says, we haven't been.
Where's she at?
She's in Durban and they haven't been. We're in just this little valley of not good. I've always said though, you cross the state line out here right by the fort and it's like they drew a line across the road. When you stay on this side, you won't see anything, and you drive over that line, and you're not going to see anything. Literally.
That is so true. Oh my God.
I saw a car come through there, it's been a few years ago, a car come through there. We were going towards Utah, and they were coming this way, and they hit that patch right there in front of the Rodney Fort, and it must have been just a sheet of ice, and they went down through the median, and all you saw was this big old thing of white snow down through the median. They went, luckily it was deep enough that it stopped.
Yeah, I think people come in and don't realize. Because those Utah roads are generally pretty good.
Yep.
Well, do they anticipate a lot of people today? I didn't know if this would be canceled or not.
Yeah. I
Who's not?
Brian Woodward's not coming. He mentioned at the last meeting he had a conflict, so he's not coming. And Caleb, is coming.
That's right.
And Jenny might be a little bit late, she said. But they're all, the other seven.
I haven't heard of Caleb, unless I didn't yet.
I haven't either, right?
I just know that he was down so late.
Yeah.
Last night we were asking him, he was still down there.
Yeah. Are we on, Jared?
We are, I just went live.
Okay. Probably about 10 minutes, we'll turn the mics on and we'll turn the batteries.
How are you?
No, I don't know.
Is there someone in Williams who was out in the basement this one? Do you potentially have his contact information?
How are you, Sue?
How are you?
Just double check and make sure. It's just you need to
Welcome.
Hi.
How are we doing tonight?
Great. How are you?
Oh, doing well. Enjoying the snow?
Oh man, I can hardly stand it.
Or we should say enjoyed the snow and continued to.
Ugh, continually. And now it's cold, cold, cold.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Good to see you guys. What do you mean? Great.
How are you?
How are you?
Yeah. You better check on I will.
Yeah, I'll have it on there and I'll have it on here, and then he's live streaming it, so. Yeah, he's on, it's actually live right now, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are we on?
Turn it on.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2 1 2.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Something like that.
I didn't turn that one over there because we shouldn't eat it. I got that one. We'll leave it watch the battery, that's only like 3 out of 4.
It's down to 1 now.
Oh, it is? We better probably just. It's the, yeah, right there.
No, you don't have quite as much.
And it's not a long
With the chair.
Right now,
I'm thinking right around 50. Carl was out right around 35 years. She took out 30 years.
kids ask.
It almost like
Manpower, mental powers, all willingness to wake up. Yeah, every time I start. I was driving to the house at 7:30. I texted my guys and said, "Don't come in till 9." I shivered.
What's that?
It's never enough. They're gonna still pray when they're in. We're not done. 5 years ago. You gotta get Carl in first. It's all about spring. We're trying to get
How are you? It's 6 o'clock. Time to roll. We can get out of here. Because if I get rolling again or I get talking, then we're going to be here till 9 again. We're good. Oh, look at that face right there.
I've got 9 20-year-olds yearling horses out in the barn with these grounds. So however long you want to stay there tonight, David, helping me build kennel corrals in an arena.
So my wife's sitting back there, and she has different things.
So have you got the hand signals down?
I got the hand signals down for my wife. They're pretty good. She directs those. So do I need to do the pledge of allegiance probably?
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, I think that's a good stroke. Yeah.
So we'll just have to,
It's not real formal, but
oh, then you call to order the hearing,
yeah, there's Jenny.
and then I need to motion to open the
Yeah. Are we live?
probably.
Realize that. Hi, Jenny.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Seems like it's been a while since I've seen you.
It's been a while. Yeah. Well, I missed the last meeting, so but we're back into January.
Look at the pretty colors.
Colors.
We need to go grab those guys. Late.
And I forgot about this, I was like, okay, I'll just start building the house.
I don't have my computer, so.
Yeah, I didn't bring a laptop.
So for sure it will have
I need it.
How are you?
Is that your cell phone?
Yeah.
And you just plugged it in?
Well, I brought a charger from home.
Krista says she brings hers in case people text her questions during the meeting. Is that?
Well, I have had people do that.
I wondered.
But I haven't been home yet, and my phone's dead. So,
Mine in the car.
I'd like to leave my computer in the car. So,
Well, you can just let it go blind.
sorry I moved your drink.
There you go.
Brian's here.
Caleb won't be here. Yeah, I guess that's how to go.
Maui. Still not as good as we were very still there.
We have a quorum, so
Yeah, we got more. Brian and Caleb. Brian's not here.
Water Mike and I made it this 1 minute since we did.
it's time. All right, welcome everybody to the special board meeting today. It is now 6:04, and I'd like to call to order this special board meeting today. Can I have a motion to open this board meeting?
So moved.
Second. First, I have a second. Okay, we will go into there. If we can all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, I appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Kind of short and sweet today, but I do need a motion to approve today's agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented for the day.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anything that needs to be modified or added to or taken away from it? Hopefully not taken away from it. Okay, if not, ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to discussion items. Mr. Thomas.
Chairman Peterson, members of the board, I'd like to introduce Jared Dennis and Brent Sanders. They'll make the presentation on the scope of the project, estimated timeline, and then talk about the estimated costs. After that, I will talk a little bit about funding options. Then there'll be a community comment period. I'd just like to remind everybody that this is streamed live, but it's not in real time. So there is a comment portion. I think it's public comments at UNO1.com. You can leave a public comment, and we'll make sure the board gets those. But you can't comment via the live stream.
Stream, yes.
Will be done by the time we get that comment.
Okay. All right, thank you. Please state who you are. And address. State your name.
Chairman Peterson, members of the board, Jared Dennis, Director of Facilities and Technology. Coming up and sitting next to me is Brent Sanders. So, and I guess I should address the community as well, since this is a forum for them. give a little context for what we have going on. So a couple years ago, yes.
Please introduce Brent and who he is and what he does. Brent, if you could please comment.
Brent Sanders, I'm the owner of Crest LLC, a consulting engineer for the district on the project.
Okay, thank you.
So last year, and I'll give you a little context, last year we purchased 3 of these domes. And so this kind of gives you a rendering of what these look like. These are the actual ASTI domes that were purchased. Purchased them for about $300,000. They originally used by the Mission Training Center in Provo, Utah. Then they were taken down by a professional company out of Salt Lake City. They went through, inventoried everything, packaged everything up, got them actually ready to ship to a company that was going to purchase them out of New York. At the last minute, that company backed out of it, and so they then put them on trucks and shipped them about north of Santaquin, Utah, where they've been out there for the last 18 months to 2 years. Through a contact, I was made aware of these and then started the procedure, as you guys will recall, last year, bringing that to your attention. The decision was made to go ahead and purchase those with the caveat that the current owners would store those until this spring, and then we would transfer them up to here. And so that's kind of where we are at this point, as we actually have those 3 domes in our possession down there and needed to make the next steps. And so since October, I've been working with Brent, and we've been working and planning to see what it would take to erect those domes and the cost for those. And so as I presented before you on the costs and everything, I wanted to present for the community as well, kind of go over what things would look like. So as we go through this is the layout of where they would be. Looking at this picture here, you've got the football field and the track. For those of you who are familiar where the old tennis courts were when the high school was built, this is the actual location of where we would place those domes. Just north of the practice field, just down that slope. Both of the domes that we're looking at would be the same square footage, which would give us approximately 24,000 square feet between the 2 of them, and be able to lay out really nicely in this area here. With the domes being placed where they are, we've also talked about the need of ADA access, knowing that we would have community members, students who may need to be able to access this via wheelchairs or other means. And so I had Brent design kind of the ADA access, and what you see here is where we would place that. As you're looking at that picture, to your right would be the school, or the back of the drive there. The utility area is right there, that's gated off. That's where our current electrical distribution and gas distribution is, which is really ideal for us as we move forward with this project. So that's where, use my mouse there, that's that utility here. This is our current watershed. This is where our domestic water comes in and goes from here. This would be the ADA access that would allow individuals to come up and then be able to get into the domes, allowing them access to both domes this way. Off of here, we've also designed restroom facility, possibly a little bit of a changing area if need be, which would not only help those who are participating in the domes, but also during track events and football events, being able to have 2 facilities, one on the south side and then one on the north side of the field. So that's also kind of part of the scope that we've kind of designed into. What's nice about this is we already have water here, And looking at our plans, there's a sewer line a little bit south of this. It comes along here, follows the road, and then actually follows the existing sidewalk. We're hoping to be able to explore that and find that this spring. If not, we'll tie in right here and be able to bring the sewer right here. This saves us a lot of time and money, as when we originally had talked about having those restrooms a little bit further to the west, and so that consolidates that quite a bit. Any questions on those two renderings thus far from you as a board? Okay. The next couple slides are just going to be able to show you kind of the layout of what's possible as far as being able to, what we can put inside of the domes. And so this actually came from the paperwork that we got from the domes. This is what MTC had originally designed for theirs. And I think it shows some great opportunities for us as a district. So this here seats about 300 people. And so one of the things that we could do in here is some professional development for our teachers and staff. If you wanted to do some things for your student, that layout there fits that footprint there. So that goes to show you just how many people you could actually get in just in a meeting type of situation. This represents basketball courts. Now, naturally, they're not full size going this way. We do have some other renderings we'll be able to show full size going this way. Volleyball courts, and then I'll also show you some wrestling setup. So, as you can see, lots of different opportunities for students, both our PE classes and our athletes, in being able to utilize this space. Again, kind of the basketball layouts. This is volleyball. This can be set up so you get a little bit more spectator standing area. This is going to be a little bit less. Both can be volleyball, badminton, pickleball, all kind of in those same areas. Again, as we talked about basketball, this one actually represents a full-size basketball court, which could be used for tournament play. If we're hosting the freshman tournament or middle school tournament, lots of options in being able to do things in that regard. For those wrestlers out there, we've got the capability of 6 mats this way. Naturally, when you do this, you lessen your spectator opportunities, or you can come in and just bring 2 mats this way. What's nice about these is we talk about the flexibility. As we look at these pictures, this is a turnstile door, and the reason for the turnstile door is because these are air, and you've got to keep the air in. You've got the positive and negative pressure you've got to worry about. So these are the entrances that 99% of the individuals will use accessing these domes. These 4 areas actually represent exterior or exit only. So if there ever is an emergency, we've got proper adequate access out. This is actually an 8-foot roll-up door, and that's really a great opportunity for us because we can actually bring a forklift in, you can bring a small truck in and be able to get the equipment in and out that we would need. There's actually 2 roll-up doors, so you'd open the one, bring your equipment in, close it, then open the other so that you're not allowing the air to escape. This is a good representation of where the HVAC units are for this system. It is designed for both heating and cooling, and then there's also a small generator that's part of that. It's a generator and then also the blower, which keeps everything inflated. So the question is, what happens if the electricity goes out, the generator kicks on, keeps things up and moving? From what we understand, if the electricity goes off and we had an issue with the generator, it's not going to be like a hot air balloon where it's just going to collapse suddenly it will take a little bit of time to collapse, and so we can't get people out.
So, clarification on, you say the domes, but what's all included with the purchase of the domes? Does it have the generators and everything is with that? So could you please expand on what's included with the purchase of them?
Yeah, so everything that I've talked about here, as far as the turnstile doors, everything, the roll-up doors, the HVAC units, they are weight size about 12 tons. They're about the length of a semi-truck trailer. And one for each dome, so each dome has its own. Then with that is its own generator, and then basically the fan for blowing that up. That's all included. The transfer switches are included. All of the electrical that was set up with these are included, which means all of the switching gear. We found the lights. There's lights that are included inside here. I don't remember off the top of my head how many lights. One of the recommendations that we'll probably look at is switching those from the halogen to LED while we can, to keep it a little bit more efficient and probably better quality lighting. The anchor system for the entire thing is part of it. Trying to think what else we saw down there.
It's got all the ducting for the connections from the HVAC to the domes. All the ducting work is included also.
Basically everything we need to be able to stand these up from start to finish. The only thing not included are the people to actually stand them up.
Right.
So.
Okay, so just an observation with this, wouldn't it be better to turn it so that both of your entrances into those domes are down the center aisle, so that if you are having tournament play, you can just go back and forth without having to walk around the whole facility to get in, or?
So it is an option and something we can look at. As Brent and I were designing, what we were trying to do is what's the quickest route to be able to get people in, especially if it's inclement weather. And so by turning that, we would literally have the turnstile door on the other side. The other thing we had to bear in mind, if we do turn that, we've got to create ourselves a wide enough path to be able to get our equipment in and out of that roll-up door. And not that that can't be done, but literally what we'd have to do is shift everything over, which would require more dirt work to be removed this way to be able to flip that.
Okay.
But that's a great thought. Originally, we talked about what it could look like in being able to create a connection between those. After talking to the manufacturer, that's not an option for us. It was a great idea, but not feasible. And so it will require basically the separate entrances for individuals to come in.
Yeah, the separate entrances is fine. I just wondered if it might be better if both entrances were down that center aisle between the two facilities, but.
Yeah. Other questions with that in the design? So this is just, I'll call it the 30,000 foot overview of what the cost is. We've got other figures that kind of break it down a lot more. But in essence, what we're looking at by the time you look at demolition, concrete, utilities prep, mobilization, cranes, everything we would need. For the bubble structure alone, not talking about the restrooms that we talked about, you're about 1.5 million, okay? That does not account for the FF&E, which would be anything on the inside, so sports court or turf or flooring or any of that. Basically, that number is to erect those two bubbles like was presented for us. questions with that?
Do you, in your slides, have the photos of the interior, the actual structures as they were erected? You said you had the exterior of the one, but do you have?
I did not include those.
Okay.
I'd be happy to get those out, and we can put those out on social media again if need be.
Yeah, that'd be good. Do we have quotes for all the interior, what we want to do? If we're going to do this all at once, we want facilities up and running by spring or fall, right? Have we got any quotes to be able to get all that done?
We are working on that, knowing that we were going to have this form. We've just kind of been working on getting the initial design and the initial startup for that. We have been working on a few things as far as, what that FF&E would be, but haven't spent as much time on that.
Rough idea even?
200,000?
That's for the indoor stuff. What about restroom facilities? Or is that including restrooms?
That's just your interior,
That would just be
right?
interior, probably about 250,000.
Depending on where that sewer line has to go. Close to 1.9.
Everything put together, you're probably close to the $2 million. Now, if you were to figure that out, if you were to build a building, brick and mortar, 24,000 square feet, you'd probably be looking at roughly somewhere between 15 to 18 million dollars, compared to 2 million, and so significantly much cheaper in going this direction. So.
Do we know the lifespan of the domes?
Lifespan of the domes, they rate them for about 12 to 15 years. So by the time we were to set these up, we're probably looking between 9 and 12 years. We did find out that the current HVAC units are still under warranty. That's a good thing. Till the end of March. But it just goes to show you that it is new equipment, and they looked in pristine condition. Naturally, being outside, there's some things to clean them up, but everything, functionality-wise, it looks to be in really good shape. And knowing that, there was a warranty till the end of March, that tells you that, this equipment is in good shape.
I got some phone numbers of people that call me all the time about extended warranties. I wonder if we need to reach out to them individuals.
Jaron, do you have a timetable on when everything will be here in Evanston?
We're working on getting the actual domes up here in Evanston by the end of March.
Okay.
1st of April. For two reasons. One is we need to get them up here, store them kind of in a warehouse to be able to separate, really see what everything is, take an even better inventory. And two, the current owner is ready for us to move
get them up
because
there.
they need to do the things they need to, which will require about 6 semis. We'll have to do 3 semis at one time because we'll have to crane those HVAC units on, and the other semis can come a little bit one at a time, or we can take 3 back down. Our idea is we'll bring those HVAC units, put them as close to the site work that we can without getting in the way, and then everything else we'll put in a warehouse and go from there.
If we have spring.
Which is a great reason as to why we need this. We could talk about the why. And right now, our current weather, we've got next week, for those of you who aren't aware, next week, outdoor track and outdoor soccer, both boys and girls, start. Yeah, looks like we should be ready for that.
Ready for something.
What?
I mean, more of the same.
And you're,
Snowstorm.
Yeah.
Coach Barker, 120 kids,
We'll have 120 kids, yes.
120 kids. Brian, you're probably looking at 50, 60. And same with our girls, probably 50 to 60.
Probably around 40.
Roughly 200 kids that are out of a place to do anything, except let's put them in our hallways. We're currently running, Coach Barker, we had 40 kids for indoor track?
80.
80 kids.
Start, we finished about 65 to 70.
Kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
So that have been just inside right now running our hallways.
Mrs. Peterson, how many are at the middle school level?
We have probably 90 to 120 at each middle school.
So another 200 kids.
We start
500.
with probably 80.
500 kids that right now have no place except to be inside. And Coach Peterson, how is it training them inside?
Oh, yes. It's
Running the hallways of EMS, that works out really well, right?
Yeah, we try and run the hallways, watch when you don't step out of the doorway, you're gonna get run over.
Yeah.
And we try to split it up so we can use the hallways and the gym. We have to be quite creative because we were trying to teach them field events in gym. So
But
we
yeah,
make it work, we make it work when we need to.
You've got your 100, 150 kids. Soccer's trying to compete for that same space. High school track's trying to compete with the same space, which means that oftentimes, starting at 3 o'clock, having a 3 to maybe an hour and a half practice, and then others are moving, so we're finishing practice at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And then condition that's not really going to benefit them for preparing for their events. And so we could talk about our basketball teams. We could talk about our, Mrs. Davis, 5 o'clock, 30 years at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, these facilities will benefit every activity group other than swimming. I mean, really, if you think about it, marching band, drill team, cheerleaders, wrestlers, basketball players, volleyball, I mean, you name it, it will benefit everyone but swimming.
Yeah. Every year we rent the roundhouse
It'll
and
benefit
machine
them
shop
also, because
for-
they work out in the morning. I've seen them in the gym, in the room,
Running
they
and stuff?
run, yeah.
Oh, well.
Even the swimmers.
Yep. Every year we've rented the machine shop and roundhouse for the last 5 years for professional development for our teachers in August. Always nice and cool down there because of the air conditioning that's provided, right? Okay. So professional development that can happen there, trainings that could happen. As we've talked about, just our activities. It's going to take a huge load off of our buildings that are already being used. Right now, our elementary gyms, 3 of the 4 are used 3 times a week for our community with our traveling basketball. Evanston Middle School is used 3 nights a week in the fall and the spring for women's volleyball. So we've got a lot of our community using our buildings as well, and then we're squeezing our kids in. And so from a scheduling point, it's very difficult for us to be able to schedule where we need to put kids, making sure our kids have top priority, which then sometimes pushes our community out, and that makes a difference.
So let's talk about life expectancy of your hardwood floors. High school, EMS, DMS. How many more years you got left on those?
Evanston Middle School, that's a loaded question. Due to improper ceiling, the Evanston Middle School is getting redone this year.
No, okay,
which
well, I guess what I'm saying
after
is,
that, we'll have
how many more times can we refinish these floors and resand them?
Evanston
Before we
Middle
have to-
School will be able to do it probably 4 more times.
Okay.
Evanston High School is done. In the next 2 years, we will be refinishing,
Replacing.
putting a brand-new floor in
Replacing
Evanston
it.
High School, which will be about a $200,000
Major maintenance
investment.
doesn't pay any of that.
Major maintenance does, but bear in mind,
They only pay some.
if you've got a $2 million major maintenance budget and you're using 200,000, which is a good thing, we want to be able to maintain and keep our floors up and stuff like that. It just takes away from the other things that we're able to do. So Davis is probably in the same boat as the high school. We could probably do that one more time so we can get another 10 years out of Davis. But there's a cost. And the more people we put on it, there becomes a cost. So, other questions that you as a board have in regards to the work that we have laid out at this point?
When you said 2 million more, was that including the restrooms? Okay, thank you.
Not 2 million, 2 million total.
2 million total.
Total.
That's an expensive bathroom.
Yeah, for the floors and the restroom, yeah.
Big bathroom.
That's a big bathroom.
Solid gold.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you, I guess for you, Brent, what do you think is our biggest obstacle that you see facing getting these done by fall?
I think we're going to have a very short construction season this year.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to really drive getting it done and then finding contractors because they're going to be in high demand. And then I think the one challenge that we have is getting the domes actually erected, put onto the anchors and inflated. I think we have a line on somebody that can do that. And I've talked to the manufacturer in New York and asked them to provide us a quote to send one of their experts out to be present while we do that work to supervise their working on it. But I would say though, my biggest concern is getting going early enough to finish it on time. Because right now, I would bet we can't do much work up there till June. In this area.
You'll be a part of the vetting process, going through with Jaren, make sure the contract's selected correctly.
Yeah, we're working on the bid package right now. We'll have about a 65% review meeting with Jaren in a couple of weeks and then finish it up pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Great.
anything else? Anybody?
How about cost to run them?
Maintenance,
I don't know if maintenance is right, I don't know what the right word is, power and keeping them inflated all the
Operational costs. I'm going to defer to John Williams.
John
has a spreadsheet.
broken that down.
Most of the power.
I guess the big part of that is it will cost to operate them. We know that will cost to clean them and maintain them. In terms of the cost that John talks about, John, is that your first year is roughly $88,000?
Yeah, so the operational cost annually, and you have to, included in this is custodial costs. Included in this is utility, basically anything I could think of to do it, is for, in 23-24, it'd be about $83,000. Kind of a present value of the operational cost would be about $78,000 just to maintain that each year.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. O'Neill, Rocco O'Neill, to be here today because my question was, is there a revenue source that may be able to be utilized to offset some of our operational costs associated with it? And have we ever looked into that before or considered that at all?
John Peterson, members of the board, we look into any and all funding sources. In terms of a project like this, to present it for the board and the community, our expectation is we're going to pay for it ourselves. So anything that we can find that will help support it would be great. But these are numbers of paying for it ourselves, and I would tell you that they're on the high end. Even the quote up there, you can see $120,000 construction contingency budget. Our hope is that we don't get into that. I've never experienced a project where we haven't here in this community, but it's there. And again, we don't want to underestimate the cost of this project. And there are options. You've already heard about, do we put a bathroom in? What's the FF&E? And those will have to be discussed further related to the cost that those will occur.
And we can have the mechanical and electrical engineer also give us some costs on just what they, based on the actual units we have and based on where we live, they should be able to give us a pretty close cost of what the annual, just the utility cost would be on this.
That first year will definitely be telling. We'll learn more. And of course, our climate's challenging. But what's nice about these units, they're self-contained, they are air-conditioned and heated, which will definitely be a benefit for us.
Probably going to use the heat more than the AC.
Other questions?
I'm good.
So, Mr. Thomas, were you going to talk some more on the financial end of things and
Yep.
where things are going to come
Chairman
from?
Peterson, members of the board, I'm going to start just kind of with a few history lessons. In the spring of 2021, actually before then, probably right about Christmas time of 2020, the board put together a proposal to build a field house and to take this to the voters. It was taken to the voters in November of 2021. The field house project included a renovation of the football field at about $3.5 million. It contained a very, I would say, adequate space, a field house, and it also contained an additional soccer complex up on the EHS site. And that was roughly $20 million. The voters voted that down. And part of the reason for that is an additional tax cost. In terms of school finances, one of the things that I saw on social media, the district social media, is a concern that this will raise property taxes. Right now, the voters, the public, all of us have a responsibility of 28.7 mills that goes to the operation of schools. 25 of those mills are by statute. We have no control over those. That provides us the local resources. The other mills, which is a half a mil, a 0.5 mil, is the BOCES mill levy that they can do without a vote from the public. We are the fiduciary agent. It's a flow-through. Those mills are assessed to us and they flow to the BOCES. 2 mills additional are approved by the voters for the BOCES. So they operate on 2.5 mills that flows through us. No money, no kickback. Also, there is a 0.2 mill which goes to the CBRV BOCES. Again, flows through us to them. And then there's 1 mill which is the recreation mill, which they levy. And that's where the 28.7 mills come from. Regardless of what the school district does and how we spend our money, we do not influence those 25 mills, either up or down. That is based on county assessed evaluation. So I've heard that people are saying, well, our mills went up because of the district's desire to build a field house. The field house had nothing to do with that. Our funding comes from local resources, which is property taxes and other taxes that we pay, vehicle fees and those kind of things. Only accounts for 41% of our operational budgets. The other 59% comes from the state. We have an entitlement that's set by state statute, state law, funding formula that's very complex. Local resources of every community goes to their funding source, then the state kicks in the rest and takes us to 100%. So regardless of what we do, Winnet County School just does not influence those 25 mills. We have no impact. Again, assessed evaluation. They go up and down based on that evaluation. So this project would not impact any of that. The other side that I heard on social media is that this was voted down. Why are we continuing on? Well, it's true the field house was voted down, but the need for the field house hasn't changed. The need for these facilities have not changed. What has changed over time and what's allowed us the window to do this is truly COVID. If you're familiar with the $3.5 million we put into the football field, I think it's interesting that the exact dollar that was quoted when we went out to the community is exactly what it basically cost us to fix that field. We were able to do that through carryover. And I think some wise finances, we were able to pay basically our staff, 100% of our staff, through COVID dollars, our BESSER funds, $3,200 each, every employee. So the majority of that money went to our employees. We did have some situations where we paid for custodians to keep our schools clean and sanitized, and our nurses, which are not paid, fully funded through our model, using ESSER ARP funds. So the money that we did not have to spend on the custodians and those nurses went back into carryover. So that's why when the field was presented, we said we can do it out of carryover and still maintain roughly where we are. Right now we're at 5.8 million. We just spent 3.2 million out of our carryover, and it's back to, it was 6.4, now it's 5.8.
That's good.
Because of the way we financed projects using federal funds that our school district got. These domes came available at an interesting time. We saw it to fill the need. We knew it'd be expensive, and that's kind of where I'm at now. Is we do have a couple of options. It was asked again on social media. You can't get past that our reserve has come through taxpayers' dollars, which is true. I mean, that's how we're funded. In 2009, when we started to make inroads into our carryover, there was $300,000 in our carryover. Through, again, wise, very conservative financial planning and budgeting, we got to $6.4 million 2 years ago. The money came because we over budgeted it and under, how do we say that? So we spent less than we budgeted, and that money would go into carryover. Over all those years, that's what it took. There weren't large chunks of money. It just showed that, I think, in terms of our community, we were fiscally responsible. We spent less than we budgeted. Probably every year for those years. From as little as $100,000 to as much as $600,000. But over time, we were able to get to 6.4. If you remember, there was a time in 2020 that we thought we were above our 15% cap and we'd lose that reserve. We felt a need to spend it down on a one-time purchase, which happened to be the football, soccer, and track complex. Again, now we're back to 5.8. So these are the options we have. I guess we can be as creative as we want. We can take this 1.4 million out of carryover, and that would take us to about a $3.2 million carryover. But I think there's probably a better way to do that, or the FF&E. I think some of that may have to come out of carryover. It's a one-time expenditure. What we've never done, because I think we've been fiscally responsible, is we've never used reserves to pay for employee salaries and benefits, because it's one-time money. Once you use it, it's gone. Yet, we've used that reserve for one-time purchases needed. We've purchased vehicles, snow plows, scoreboard is probably the largest expense, but we've been very responsible for that. Because we have major maintenance monies and because we are insured, there are probably very few instances that we'd have to dig deep into our carryover if a catastrophe happened at our school district. If we lose a boiler, we can get it replaced, but we may have to pay for it up front. That's what the carryover's for. So I guess in terms of those options, 5.8 million as a carryover. Someone said, well, why can't we give that to the staff? Again, it's a one-time purchase. We've given our ESSER money, which is one-time money, to the staff, and I believe that will continue into next year until we run out of those federal funds. To me, personally, it's been the best use of those funds. We didn't ask for them. It was sent to us, and we gave it to our staff. And that's who has retention, and as a retention payment and stabilization payment, and that's what the funds were for. So if we do commit $200,000 a year, it does not take away from our staff. It does not take away from our instructional program. We have funding for that. I can tell you the outlook for this year's funding is better than I assumed it would be.
Yeah.
I wish it would be much better than I assumed it would be.
But it's not.
But we do have funding that I believe, the legislative session is not finished, but at this point, I do believe there'll be funding to give additional raises to our staff. Again, 85% of our budget is salaries and benefits. That's where it needs to go. It also will give us an opportunity to put money back into our operating accounts, which have not been there. So if you look at the big picture of this expense, we're talking $278,000 a year, including the operation cost. I can tell you that $200,000 out of a $42 million budget is 0.005% or 5 thousandths of our budget. We can do it. And we can hopefully finally get an answer to the issues that we've suffered from in this district for 25 years. And that's not an indoor space for our kids to participate. The why is very clear. I mean, we start track next week. We have blown snow off our new track 3 times already. And now it's more than it was when we originally blew it off. So I don't think they're going to be on the track unless they use snowshoes, which might be a good workout. The academic part of this, remember, this is full-time at our high school. Our PE department will be able to use this as a teaching station, actually, too. I appreciate the work John's done. John did a cost analysis, and these will pay for themselves with a very conservative estimate on how much money the district gets back from these bubbles in 10 years. This will be a win-win if they last 10 years.
Yep.
If they last 7 years, that'll be disappointing. I'm hoping they last 15.
Yep.
At that point, where we get to the end of these domes, we need to come up with a permanent solution. And I would suggest that's when we go back to the community and say, look, this is what's needed. I'm very conservative. I don't want to pay more taxes, but at the same time, I think the students in this community deserve these facilities. They are not Taj Mahals.
Right.
They are actually putting a bubble on a problem.
Stop it.
It's a good
bubble. Stop
It is.
Yeah.
Brent,
You
the
got
way
a
they're
question,
doing all
Don?
the cement work and everything, if we look into the future, 15 or 20 years, could you put a field house on that and save money? Like, has that been, I know you can't design it that way exactly, but.
Yeah, for a structure to go on these, the current design, the codes allow us not to do deep foundations that a structure would require being down below frost depth. These can have what are called shallow foundations, which are basically given by enough depth and size to hold the domes in place. But it would be difficult to match a building up based on that, and that the 2 foundations are separated. But we are designing the interior concrete to be exterior concrete. It means if the domes go away and it gets exposed to freeze-thaw cycles, it'll last longer. That's done through entrained air with concrete, which is, there's big differences between exterior and interior concrete. We're doing the interior slabs as exterior concrete for something like that, that they're not knowing what that might be. There is a future use and some longevity out of the concrete if it's exposed to outside conditions.
So if we end up going to a permanent structure on there, it's going to be, we'll have some drainage that would have to address, and probably some drilled foundations that would put in and then put a wall through it, and not have to remove the entire
Yeah.
piece of concrete, but it would be.
We're close to permanent foundation depth right now, and we're doing the wind upload calculations right now. The original foundations were 3 foot tall, but that was with 18 inches extended above ground, so we could have the face on the inside around conduits. So we're about 24 to 30 inches underground right now, so if you wanted to build those to have future use for any kind of structure, you'd have to have those go down to 48 inches deep.
How much cost would that add if we decided to
We
do
could look
that?
at that. Probably your biggest cost would be additional material, because the excavation to get from there down to your additional depth is probably the lesser cost on the concrete cost. If it's something you guys choose to do, we could evaluate it pretty quickly. The foundation widths are much wider than needed, but that's because the dome has to attach to the outside of the concrete foundation walls, plus we need that horizontal face to run conduits and that type of stuff. The manufacturers told us that these domes aren't structured to have the foundations of the domes be above the finished floor. They have to be at the same elevation as the finished floor because of the doorways and the interlock systems and that stuff. It's all the same elevation, so that's part of why the foundations have become wider. And honestly, the foundations are wider for more weight, holding the domes in place during high wind.
I might, if I may, Chairman Peterson, members of the board, perhaps look at what Chairman Peterson talked about.
Real quick. Mr. O'Neill, did you have?
Yeah, I have to go, I have another meeting.
No, I know, that's why I was going to interrupt him real quick.
The only thing I would say about the structure and only lasting 8, 9, 10, 11 years, no one's talked about really the part that only lasts 8, 9, 10 years is the skins, correct? So we're only talking about skins. That's a much less cost to replace if those skins go bad. And so you're not replacing $1 million piece.
Concrete.
You're replacing the skins. And so
I was just thinking if you do end up, we have a big windfall and want to build a real field house, it'd suck to have to tear up all of this and start over. If we can do something to begin with.
If it's a future thought that you want, it's definitely something that could be fit in. You'll notice that those two buildings are slightly offset right now, and that's due to access and getting utilities around the back and that type of stuff. If that's something you wanted to do, it would be recommended to align those so a rectangular building will fit on there. That's something we have to look at and readjust the site if that's a future consideration you want to have.
I think that's something you construction guys need to look
Well,
at
and
more
as you
about.
look at this, if you go the way Brent just talked about, your footprint has to be that same size as those bubbles. If you go the way that Chairman Peterson talked about, where you've got that cement, you could come back, do pillars or some things on the outside, then it could greatly expand that, giving you probably close to 28,000 square feet. That's one structure instead of two.
Yeah,
So there's a
that's what I
couple
was- yeah.
options to really think about. With that, it might be my recommendation, and I will defer to Brent on this, I would probably say build these the way they are, and then in the future, come back, maybe look at some pillars, and then you can really see what.
That's what I was saying, yeah, it was just keep these where they're at, and I don't know if you're going to benefit by putting a permanent structure back on top of these two right here. If you're going to put the money out, make one big building out of the whole thing and open the space up so you have a little more room. So,
Yeah.
But anyway.
At that point, you could actually do an indoor track and actually host an indoor track because of the size that you have.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have any more on the financial end of things?
Only if you have questions.
What would be the benefit of taking out a loan versus just paying it?
Well, personally, if you save money, I'd like to just pay for it. But at the same time, if that's a concern of the board that we have a $5.8 million budget or a $5 million budget as compared to a $3 million budget, it is not much of a burden.
Yeah.
To go $300,000 a year for 10 years. That removes the question, because if I was a staff member, I'd potentially be worried, well, you're doing domes over me. It's not the case. And I think that would show at $300,000, $200,000 plus whatever the operating costs are is very reasonable. I think that's a kind of a reasonable, prudent way to approach this.
Yep, I like it.
I guess one of the benefits of paying out front is it's out of the way, it's
No
done.
interest.
Well, it's expensive to borrow money right now. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Again, you guys know John, that $200,000 isn't a good interest rate. So, again, we didn't estimate.
Is he going to be able to sleep at night knowing we're paying interest?
I don't ask him.
And we could pay it off early, correct?
What's that?
We could pay the loan off early. I mean, if it was in 7 years or 8 years.
That's the other thing we do not know, is we can't predict the future of Wyoming finances. Hopefully, at some point, the issues that we have with our current model, where our teaching staff is underfunded significantly, is rectified. There is potential litigation to change some of that, and external cost adjustments, which are cost of living adjustments, are made permanent.
Yeah.
funding may become better.
Yeah.
My history in this district, I've been here since a long time, 87, and I've seen our finances ebb and flow. From everything was frozen to money was flush, $6,000 raises a year for 3 years in a row. When there was money, the district put it into the staff. And then I've seen lean times. Right now, 10 out of the last 12 years, we've had decline in enrollments and reduced funding from the state. It's been very difficult. And with that, we are still able to pull these projects off because of the window of COVID and those ESSER dollars. It's the only way we could have done it.
Cool.
Anything else from the board at all? Any more questions?
Good job.
Okay. With that being said, we will go into public comments at this time. I don't need a motion to do that, do I? No.
You guys don't.
So if you guys are going to come up and speak to the board or speak on behalf or whatever, if you want to say about the domes, whatever comments you have, please state your name, your address, and please keep it time sensitive. And then if it's going to be basically the same comment as the person before you, you can come up and just say ditto instead of repeating what somebody said. So with that being said, we will turn the time over to you guys.
Don't everybody rush at once either.
We'll let everybody sit here and think about it a little.
They must be in favor of it.
Yeah. Cool. It's great.
Oh, we got a couple. All right. So can I hit on you?
Hey, I'm Mrs. Peterson. Is this the one to use, or is it this one down there? Okay, I'm Mrs. Peterson, 311 Clarkson Avenue, Evanston, Wyoming. I've been involved with the track program for a number of years, probably going back maybe 15 or so. I don't know, the records are at the school. I brought my track gear today with my snow boots on. But, you know, high school programs, they've got to take priority over our middle school programs. If we can have those facilities, it would be a good use. They can use it for classes, for band, for marching band practice, for PE, lots of uses for it. Host events that could come into the community and generate some excitement for people to come to Evanston and to provide opportunities for that. And so, although I'm a staff member and like the idea of having raises, I think we're here for the business of kids. And this is an opportunity right now to be able to do that and provide that for the kids. So I think it's a good plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, board. I'm Matt Morrow, 230 Del Rio Drive. I'm president of the Evanston Outlaws, the local baseball program here in town. So my concern would be, will we be able to access these facilities to have batting cages and practice facilities during winter months?
Most definitely.
Okay. And that's a big plus for us because as we travel around the state, every other town in the state has these facilities. We're one of the very few that don't, and we put our kids at a disadvantage across this whole state with not having these facilities. So I'm 100% in favor of these facilities, and if we're able to have access to those facilities, I think it's a plus. And two, when I was in the Air Force, we had to bring these facilities down at Hill Air Force Base. We used this facility for indoor track. We had a weightlifting facility in there, tennis courts, and what have you. Almost the exact same dimensions as these facilities, and it worked great. So I think this is a win-win for our kids. So.
We have to ask a question. Like, besides batting cages, we would need AstroTurf. What would be something that you think would benefit the team besides just batting cages?
Batting cages and some sort of turf or something we're not going to scuff up with baseballs. I don't want to hurt our floors or what have you, so having some sort of removable turf would be great. So that's basically all we need. We have portable mounds we can bring in. We can roll in and roll out for pitching. So that wouldn't be a concern, but my big concern would be scuffing up any other flooring you guys might have in there, and I don't want to damage those. So if we can have some sort of turf, that'd be great.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Jackie Skog, 412 Ross Avenue. I'm just wondering where the third one might be going. Is there a plan for the third dome?
Yes, there is.
Chairman Peterson, members of the board, Jared and I may disagree on this one, but I'm curious how Jared answers.
So, yes, there is a third dome, and we've got some pricing to actually construct that over at the EMS field, which would be really ideal because it allows, especially for our middle school where track is, would also allow us to maybe partner with the U Club and provide some things there. The additional cost to that is another roughly about $1 million, $876,000 we would have to incur with that. Now Superintendent Thomas wants to know which direction I would like to. I would love to be able to build all three at the same time. I recognize that that's an incurred cost, and to be able to do that, that would basically take us from a $200,000 loan to about a $300,000 loan. And is that being fiscally responsible? I'll let John answer that one, but I told him, I said, right now, really, let's get the two up, let's see what it's like, but let's plan to try to, in the next 2 years, put the next one up so that it doesn't just sit there and continue to deteriorate. But if as a board or the district would like to go, we've got the plans laid out, we've got a design, we know exactly where we'd like to put it, and so it is an option for us.
So you could put 2 in the fall and maybe next year put 3 up, because you're gonna have a short window.
Yeah. That is a big concern, being able to do all 3. It'd be different if all 3 were going to be on the same site, but being able to set up another site, that does concern me. We had a lot going on last summer. I might have a few more gray hairs, but I think let's get the 2, let's see what those are like, and then let's from there make a game plan for our third one, so that we can definitely take advantage of an additional 12,000 square feet, which would be really ideal. I look at our baseball team, it's right there. Soccer could have some things. Like I said, there's a lot of potential, but let's see what our 2 is, what's it going to cost us, and what's our main, our utilities, and then we work from there.
Chairman Peterson, members of the board, that does represent a cost that we could potentially sell to help fund the other domes. I think we could sell it for the amount that we paid for the other 2. So that's also a revenue source we can use. In terms of being conservative, which I think we've been for a long time, that may make sense. I've been approached by several groups already that would love to have us put it up in their field. So, but we wouldn't give it away at the price that we got them, but again, it's a revenue source. So that's always an option.
Sure.
And it is a different shape and would not replace one of the ones we have.
Right. No, yeah, there's 2 that were the same, and then the third one was a different size, so. Yeah, smaller. It's a little bit smaller than the other 2.
Different.
Yeah, configuration, length and width difference on them, so.
Brian Richens, 509 9th Street. I'm the head boys soccer coach. Of course, as you've talked about, this would be, I can't even express how good this would be to have these things up. I first of all want to thank the board for approving the field that you did. We can't wait to play on it. It's like...
You're going to have to.
Well, we are. Well, we always have to wait to play on our field. This time we're waiting for something really nice, though, instead of just what we can get. So we're really excited about that. As you look to approve the flooring in the domes, it would be awesome, like Matt said, to have some turf. Most of the time, or a lot of times, we end up playing in our first matches on turf fields, and for many years, it's the first time our boys have put on their new cleats at that match. So it would be great to be able to get the cleats out, know what the field or the surface feels like in our practices, in our facilities, prior to our first competition. So just as you're looking at what to put on the inside, if we could match the inside of one of those domes to what we have on our field, that would be fantastic. Then we would just have very little transition. We actually get to practice with the surface and the equipment that we will use in our competitions. So.
Just a question for you. What else besides turf would you need to hold effective practices? Scoreboards, something like that, mobile goalposts?
Goals would be the biggest thing. You know, we have portable flat surface goals right now that we use, that we can move in and out. But if there were some provided on the inside already, that would be fantastic. So, and I've not seen, well, I have done training in one of these, but I've not had a team practice inside of there, so I don't know exactly how it feels to move around and, you know, what the space when you have 50 guys in there. We may have to do some creative practicing to be able to use it, but we have to do that now with Davis Middle School. There are years that I've had years when our team truly didn't know each other because they're in 3 different pods, moving from the commons area to the mezzanine and then down on the gym floor for several weeks. And we see each other in warm-up, and that's all. So having a place like this would put us more together and not have us finishing practice. We'll finish practice on next Tuesday night at 9:30 at Davis Middle School. So that's where our practice schedule will be, 7:30 to 9:30 next Tuesday. And so being able to get kids in, get them practice, and get them out, these will help tremendously with that. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Roy Barker, 340 Castle Hill Way. I'm the head track coach here at high school. I like to Brian beat me to it. I was going to thank the board for our new facilities. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to get on it next year. Be exciting, 2 years in a row. For us, with indoor track becoming such a popular sport now and growing at the rate it is growing at, to have 60 to 100 kids, depending on the year, being able to go practice, and then only having 3 coaches, just one supervision has been very difficult. If we had kids get hurt down a hallway, kid comes running up because we're down somewhere else, so that's going to be very beneficial to be in one location, to be able to just monitor kids and their safety. We've had kids have behavioral issues where they go off and they're running. I think Mr. Bennett was involved with that one quite a few years ago. So this is such a great thing for us if this does happen. The other one is injury prevention. Running on concrete in the halls, we've had to modify. We're grateful to Coach O'Neill, wish he was still here. He bought us some rubber mats to run on, and that really, it changed our program. Just one little strip of rubber mat to run and train on has really changed our program to the point where the injuries are the shins and the hips and the bones just does not like to run on carpet. It's just not made. We're not made that way. So that's going to be very beneficial as well. And then as a PE teacher at the high school, we get displaced all the time. Every time there's a basketball game, home wrestling, everything that you can think of, assemblies, we are uprooted and we have to stop our class, go somewhere else or do something differently. And a lot of times that is going up to the cafeteria and watching a movie, where that will be not happening anymore, hopefully. We'd be able to, our instructional time would be better, our time would be better used. So once again, thank you very much for looking at these. It's gonna help a ton of kids, make our programs better in a lot of different ways. So thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
I'd like to make a comment here. I've listened to these coaches. Not only do our kids participate in sports, but many of our kids go on to collegiate activities with scholarships from these sports. And I think it's important that we encourage and make sure we have what they need to succeed in their life skills for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, good point.
Tara Lawler, 261 Darby Lane, volleyball coach. I just want to thank everybody involved who has taken the time to find these and to research this opportunity for our kids. For volleyball specifically, we do host a Labor Day tournament, Border Wars, and it is gaining a lot of traction. teams from Idaho and Utah would like to come, and right now we can't meet the demand for space. But not only is that great for our kids, it's great for our economy, because a team of 12 plus their JV team of 12 is 24 kids plus their families, plus grandmas and grandpas and their RVs that come through Evanston and stop, and we see them at all the convenience stores and the gas stations and Walmart. So it's economic opportunities. We've had opportunities to have coaches come and do bigger camps here, but typically they like to have so many kids, so we could invite other kids from Ridge County or the Valley, even Green River and Mountain View, to come for a bigger coach to come for a satellite camp. But we're then jockeying for gym space in the summer. Scheduling in the spring is difficult because obviously we're not the in-season sport. And so we do practice late at night, or we just don't do it because of weather, and then we're delayed. And so these opportunities, I think, would be fabulous. And then I think just the opportunity to have our kids not on the bus and traveling as much and having opportunities here. We don't talk about that, but the risk is always there. And to be able to become a hub, I know in the summer Utah loves to come here because we're 10 to 15 degrees cooler, and so it's not just volleyball, but basketball tournaments could happen. We could just bring so many more here. So just wanted to say thank you, and ditto to all the coaches that already came up. So thank you.
I'm Carlin Barton, 163 Kingfisher Avenue. So I'm the head girls soccer coach. Same thing, we are so excited to be on that field. I had this great plan to take a picture of the field to show the girls as it's melting. I've stopped that plan. We are not taking pictures of the field anymore, but we are super excited to play on that field. We had the opportunity to get on it under the lights this fall and practice, and it was amazing. So thank you for that field. Just a couple other things about having these bubbles. Like right now, I still have young kids. I have high school kids. With the traveling basketball, we're trying to get a good group of middle school kids to kind of get a middle school program going for soccer, trying to find time for them to practice. The only time available to practice is after 8:30 at night, and obviously we can't do that with young kids. As Brian mentioned, I would say his kids are even getting out closer to 9:45 a lot of nights when we have to be indoors playing soccer, and I'm grateful to him that he takes the later time with the boys. But I think there's so many needs. Just today, I was in a text thread, 2 text threads, trying to figure out scheduling, since we all know we're going to be indoors. It was with track, Brian and me, also the classics coach, trying to figure out when they're doing tryouts, when we're going to be practicing indoors. So these gyms are in high demand. I think the only day that people are not in there until 8:30, this includes all of the elementary schools, is Friday. But it is hard to get access and into these gyms. I think this would be a huge benefit to the community. I think it's going to help with the sports crack programs, help bring us success. I also know I'm a huge proponent of getting kids physically active. Their grades go up, they stay more involved, they stay in school. So even though it doesn't seem as academically intuitive to have, you know, more athletic stuff, but it really keeps the kids here, keeps them involved academically, and it helps them be smarter, I guess you would say. And the studies show that. You can look up the Naperville study in Illinois if you want to look that up. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Katie Butler, 1047 Sage Street. Ditto to all these coaches out here, but I'm a parent. They do a great job. They've done a great job. Their job has not changed in 20 years. Some of them are working with the same facilities and same juggling act that they had to deal with when I was in high school. And I'm sorry this upsets me a little bit. I have 2 kids going into high school this year. These coaches right here give them purpose. They make sure they matter at that high school. And I would hope that their jobs matter to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
You got it.
Everybody up here was doing the cut, done, and then all of a sudden.
All right, John Williams, Business Office. Okay, just so that everyone's kind of on solid number things, because there's been a few numbers that have been tossed around. The unassigned audited fund balance that we had at the end of July last year was $5.6 million, $5,612,219. And then the amount that was encumbered, and you add the track, the amounts that we spent, means that holding everything, kind of the same, assuming that revenues come in where we think it should be, we're on track for about 4.7 million, okay, as fund balance at the end when we get the track totally paid off. 4,754,625. This project using Dome 2 projections, we've got all three of them, and this is a little bit on the FF&E comes out of that, okay? And there's some discussion about, does FF&E come out of operating budgets or board reserve? How do we go about financing that? But assuming that, you would have proposed cost of the dome of about 1.7 million. That does not include the restrooms, okay? So going to Trustee Weaver's statement, okay, do we take this out of fund balance? If you were to go that route, you would have an estimated fund balance of about $3,021,000. That is a reduction of fund balance from the 4.7 million of about 36%.
Yeah.
Now, what I am looking for is, I'm looking for fund balance to be around, my sweet spot, well, this was before the legislature boosted up fund balance maximums to 30% for like 3 years, and then they're going to clamp it down. But my sweet spot is around 11%, 12%. We would be at 7% with that. So the thing that I caution is that we want to really watch mission creep. Oh, we want to do this, and we want to do this, and this, and this, and this, and this. That's the thing that kind of starts blowing things up. All of a sudden, we've got far more things than we originally kind of put things into. I would support Superintendent Thomas's that we go out for financing. It's a municipal finance, and basically what we're doing is we're taking that total amount and spreading it over 10 years. You're also making it so that the individuals who are the students are getting the benefit, they're also getting the cost expended over that, so that the student that's 10 years out from now is getting, the resources that were available 10 years out is kind of playing a part of paying that off and things. So, what could we get in terms of interest rate? The buses, by the way, we got one bus in today, okay?
All right.
So the bus was coming in at like 5.25, I think, was the interest rate for that. Just going online and saying, okay, what is the current interest rate? I'm roughly getting about 7.5%. I probably could get it down lower. I've got a call in for somebody that can give us a quote, and so we will need to, it's not like financing happens overnight. We would have to put it in the paper, it has to go and has to be bidded out. The cost of $1.4 million, $1.484900, would be at 7.5% is roughly $211,000. You get a little bit less if you get a better rate, I mean, obviously, and things. So I just wanted to kind of put those things into play. What you're weighing against is do I want to have fund balance at $3 million? Do I want to spend $200,000-ish, plus or minus, oh, do we add this, take away this, and things. That's what needs to be weighed. Any questions?
My one, you're looking at financing 100%, if we go after it.
Well, that would be the 1.4, the FF&E, that's kind of being juggled.
Chairman Peterson, if I can, you kind of already seen our issue with FF&E. We kind of originally just estimated $250,000, but you're talking about a floor surface, batting cages, golf nets, volleyball standards, basketball standards, $250,000. When he talks about Mission Creek, we can't purchase everything, so we'd have to be very, very smart. Didn't want to really throw that out there until we have a chance to look at that closer. We already have some flooring options already. We'll have to see how that will fit in this project. To me, I think that would be the best use to come out of the carryover. One-time purchase.
Okay.
And we can, and again, the board will have flexibility. I can tell you that the Mission Creek that we had on the football field, we shared everything with you, and the soccer field. We brought it and said, this is going to cost more, and guys wisely said, yeah, go ahead. So, but anyway, we'll have to be careful with that.
And I think the reason I bring up what else we can add to it, because we want transparency, right? We're not going to say, hey, this is for everybody, but we only benefit 3 sports versus every activity we have. And so if we're going to say this is for all activities, yeah, we are going to have to spend money, in my opinion, to make sure it's accessible to all activities.
Again, Chairman Peterson, members of the board, this is an interesting structure. It's a freestanding structure, so any kind of netting would have to have its own structure, which will be more expensive. But we're committed to that. I think it makes sense. And also, organizations that want to use it, that want to bring their structure, their FF&E, they have to do that too, as a partnership. So.
I mean, it's part of the cost-benefit analysis I put in. We're going to have certain amount of individuals coming, or individual groups coming in and renting out our facility at a certain rate. You have to cost out that type of thing. And so, it's not, and the question, does the district release that? Okay, but to get a true, what is the benefit, what is the cost, and put it in financial terms, we've got to put those together. So.
Well, and Dan and I were talking about, bringing in, Tara talked about, bringing in tournaments and different things like that. There's no reason why we can't be cashing in on some of these, my kids used to do traveling basketball teams, and they have shootout in the springs, in Rock Springs. I mean, there have to be at least 50 teams over there. So you're charging a team fee, and then you've got all of those parents coming to watch their kids play. I mean, there's no reason why we can't be looking at some of those things, using these facilities and charging for it, and supplementing some of that cost.
I mean,
This is a old school question. I hate acronyms. What's FF&E?
Oh, furniture, fixture, and equipment. So what you're talking about?
Fixture, and equipment.
Yeah. So when you have, what we're talking about, you build the structure, and now you've got to put things in it. And so you're talking about standards, nets, floor, and any of that oddball stuff that you've got to put in. So I apologize when you.
Well, it's not your fault. It's what the world is.
So I guess the thing that kind of is out there a little bit, you're talking about creeping. And I think that's what happened to our field house. I think our field house, when we first started out with it, was just a structure. and we wanted to put a track in there. And then pretty soon, everybody wanted to have a little say, and I would like this, 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 and then all of a sudden the cost goes up. So, as you're talking about creep, I think we need to be wise in what we need up front to begin with. What needs to be purchased up front. We can't purchase everything at once. That's what people have to understand.
You have what's mission essential, and then, okay, and perhaps, down the road, we put in this, and we put in this.
I worry that we purchased enough equipment that now we're gonna have to build a shed to.
Yeah, it's that type of stuff.
Well, I think to begin with, as long as you have each of the different flooring options, like Matt talked about, turf for baseball, football, and then you have the basketball flooring for the courts and volleyball, and the wrestling mats, whatever that is. I think if you start with those basic essentials, things like goals for soccer, batting cages, those are all things we can build later on.
I'll tell you one that caused me to go, when I saw the picture up there with 6 additional wrestling mats. Each of those wrestling mats are roughly $15,000, if not 18 right now.
That would be him.
And I'm not saying, I wrestled, I enjoyed it. And I'm just saying, hey, is that part of FF&E? Is that something that we go, okay, that's not going to fit this initial round?
You don't need that right to start with.
That's right. And so that's where I would urge a little bit of, hey, we're not going to, fill the entire thing with every activity, but we'll start out and then build from that.
Build from there. Yep.
So,
okay.
Sorry.
John, thank you.
So if I can clarify just a couple things. The wrestling mats wouldn't be an additional cost because we're already storing those. What it would allow us to do is, when there is a tournament, not only be able to put what we have in the gym down, but also put there. So we wouldn't have to. Brent could still have his 6 wrestling mats, and it would be a great flooring surface for him. So, batting cages. We acquired a batting cage last year. It's in great shape. It's in storage somewhere. But we've got a batting cage. We've started to acquire a few little things, but to John's point, would it be nice to be able to have all 6 standards in the floor for volleyball? Yeah. Right now, it might have to be those portable standards that are on wheels that we can get by, and then from year to year and do some things. And so I think there's some ways that we can eliminate some of the creeping. But as Jenny said, we've started to acquire some things. We can put a sports court down, which is multi-use, roll that turf out for those other times, roll the turf back, have our sports court. And so trying to think about logistics that way too, because we don't want to have an entire day spent to change out that facility for activities as well.
So I guess one of the first things out there, and I'm going to put this out there, is we need to look at a turf first and foremost inside this facility. One of our first purchases, I think, is we need to get a turf in one of them. There's so many activities that are involved that need that surface. So I think we need to probably look at going down that line of a turf, so.
Chairman Peterson, members of the board, that's one reason why we're even talking about FF&E, is because basically the position I see is, why put $1.5 million into a facility and have mixer mat flooring?
Right.
We need to put a little money into it and get a good floor, good foundation.
And then go.
And kind of build as we go. So we want to get someone in here that does this professionally to give us quotes on all this stuff. We haven't been able to do that yet.
Good. Good.
All right. Didn't we already acquire turf?
Yes.
We do, but that's something, it was free, but it's a thing that has to be evaluated. Kind of free, right, Jared?
That's one of the things we do, is have the expert look at what we have.
What we have, and then have to go
how it all
fill it in.
hopefully will come together. I understand a 10 by 10 piece of that turf weighs more than 5 individuals can move it. So we need to maybe look somewhere else.
So to your point, we have 2 types of turf. We've got, I'll call it the grandma's porch turf, if you'll remember that. It's brand new. I mean, it's in great shape, but it is a very small shag. Would be great for baseball. It could be a positive thing for soccer a little bit, but it is going to have a different feel than what they're going to see outside. We have the more outside turf that's very, very heavy, and we have a lot of it, but what it will require us to do is literally empty out the infill, and that's why it was so heavy, because we were literally lifting up all the rubber and the sand with it. So we would have to empty all that out, cut it into pieces that are square, not squiggly, and then sew that all together. The next question is, and this is to Superintendent Thomas's point, we've got to figure out how to roll that up effectively so that we can unroll it and then roll it back up and unroll it so that it can be a multi-use, because the last thing I want to do is say, all right, soccer kids, this is just yours, and track kids, you're over here, and track you now got to share with basketball and everybody else. And so we've got to figure out a way to make it a multi-use. If not, we haven't done exactly what we would have.
Don't sit down, I have a question for you. Ben Bell, 200 Hathaway, and I guess one of the questions, given the weather we've had this year, is how do they handle heavy snow? And that's just the first question. And while he's coming up to answer that, I think this is a great opportunity given to build a brand new facility with $17 million. You're getting pennies on the dollar, great floor space for the students, and something that can last for a long time, particularly if the skins are replaceable. This is a long-term solution, if you allow it to be, that does not cost the school district a lot of money to create space for kids to be able to get out of the weather, compete, practice, do those other things. As far as interest rates, we'll talk later. I'm pretty sure we can be more competitive than the rate that was out there, and most other local banks would do the same thing. But the other part of that I would say to the interest rate piece is the Fed is looking at increasing interest rates at least 3 more times this year. So to be able to say, here's our decision if we're going to finance it or just pay for it outright, whichever you decide to do, is that decision, if you go the financing route, just gets more expensive the longer you wait on that. And that's just going to be a natural piece of that. So I'll let you answer my question, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
So I know that's a question that's been asked, is how does it do in winter conditions? And in talking to the manufacturer, they've told us that it'll hold up really well. They have these in Minnesota, up in Michigan. Naturally, this company's out of upstate New York, and so they've put them in. I was worried that they were just in Arizona, California, Texas, but they have been in winter states, climates very similar to ours. Until we actually see them up and see what they're like in Evanston's elevation, I can't answer it fully, but the manufacturer says based on the design and what we've done, it should hold up really well.
Well, and the snow should slide off. The biggest issue will be when it slides off, where are you going to put it?
Chairman Peterson, members of the board, they've taken that into consideration, knowing what happened at the tennis courts. They've designed the structure for runoff.
Yeah. Yep. So there will be, it'll be set up so we've got drains going into our storm drain. And you'll notice that footprint is much bigger than just the bubbles themselves for 2 reasons. One, we want to be able to have walking ways around it, but then also too, when that snow falls, being able to do that. And so I recognize, after being up at 3 o'clock this morning, moving more snow, this will be something that we'll have to continue to maintain too. And being able to move that snow, we've got 2 pieces of equipment that, with our snow blowers, that will work really well in that more confined area to be able to move that snow to another location.
Great. Can these be patched, like if you get a hole in them?
Yeah. In fact, the documents show you exactly how to do that, several ways. But they're very similar. If you've ever gone whitewater rafting on those commercial grade rafts, it's very similar to that in some things. So.
Great.
Did I answer your question?
We also talked about security, so there would be cameras on the locations.
Okay.
Sally Davis, 80 Riverbend Court. I guess my concern, as we're talking about rolling up turf, dumping the rubber off, I think shin splints, those kids running on turf that has no give. So I don't know who would answer that question, or, I could only see the turf being more of a permanent, that's my concern, with those kids in there running on cement with very thin turf.
So there are a couple of things out there right now. Does Morgan's roll up?
No.
Morgan's does not?
They have a regular vinyl basketball court, and off to the side they have 30 yards. It stays down.
That one stays down all the time. The old original field house used to roll up. I don't know what kind of backing they have on it. It might be a little bit different backing than the little rubber things that you have in there. Roy?
Idaho State, we high jump there, run there all the time, they play football, they roll their field up. So it's a different type of basketball.
It's a different, yeah. It wouldn't have the rubber in it, so it would be a different backing underneath it, so.
Mesquite, Nevada has another facility that has 10-foot wide strips that roll up just like the new wrestling mats.
Yeah.
And it's outstanding.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna have to find the right turf.
That's why I think we need to look at an investment with FFE.
Yeah, so, okay. And that's what I was saying, the first thing out there, I think, has to be the turf that we look into, so.
I guess, is there anyone out there opposed to it? Any of our audience?
Good.
I haven't seen any come up.
Oh, wow, really? You're the opposition?
I wasn't going to say anything, but I got all dressed up, so. Dean Barker, 125 Aspen Grove Drive. Director of Engineering as well. One thing you guys will need is a building permit and obviously a height exception. I don't know if that was brought up, I was to the meeting late, so there will be a public meeting that you'll need with the Planning Commission to get the approval there. If you don't get a favorable vote there, it can be appealed to the City Council. So just wanted you to be aware of that. But also, and then speaking for myself personally as a citizen, just commend you for, they say stress is the fertilizer for creativity, and I commend your staff for, getting voted down the big field house, but to figure out a way to still build it. I really appreciate that, figuring out a different way to do it, because as someone who went to high school here and throwing the baseball at the rec center, I don't think they make us, or I don't think you can throw a baseball at the rec center anymore, but just having somewhere to go. So I commend you for that. I also say, if you're going to build it, I think you just get all the things that you need. I know we're talking about phasing it and stepping it, but I think the community will be very supportive of it, I hope, and maybe there's some fundraising or some donations or things like that. So also, I lived in Heber City for 7 years, and they have a field house there. The whole community used it. I don't know, I was late, so I don't know how much the community can use this, but every Saturday it was packed. And so, I don't know, but even if, you had to pay to use it or whatever, you had to pay at the front desk, but just things to consider, but, thanks.
Thank you. I know where there's a third one for sale the city could put up. Could contribute, and we even have a space for it.
Put on Paxton's property.
No. I think down by the baseball field would be awesome.
That's true. Okay.
So anything else? Any other comments? I want to thank you, everybody,
Yes, thank you.
for being involved with this and coming up and sharing your thoughts and feelings with it. We will look at any of the comments that might be provided before we vote on this. But with that being said, I need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn at this time.
Second.
Wow.
We got all kinds of seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, we are adjourned. We will see you next week. Same time, same place. Less audience.
Really?